Simply put, trash talking is an art form. The good ones build a name for themselves by always having something to say that'll push one of their opponents over the edge. The ones who aren't so good at it, well, they basically get laughed at while getting humiliated by the guys who are very excellent at it. Let's go back in time and look at the greatest trash talkers in NHL history. Paul Bissonnette. What is Paul Bissonnette's great quality? Of course, his Twitter account. While Bissonnette spoke trash on the ice, Twitter is the greatest place to find his comments. After Ilya Kovalchuk's contract was rejected, he sent maybe his best and most notorious trash-talking tweet. He called him a communist, then told him to get back to Soviet. Yes, it doesn't make much sense, but it's hilarious anyway. If you're curious, his Twitter handle is @BizzNasty 2.0. Theodore Flurry. Theo Flurry was a highly skilled player, which is especially impressive given his height. Flurry never let his stature keep him from getting engaged in any potentially dangerous situations. He went hard to the net and made no apologies for what he had to do to get there. Flurry took a few penalties during his career, but always made an effort not to be the only one taken out. He'd go find someone and get right in their face, chirping and yapping to make them take a penalty. During Fleury's all-too-brief stint in Colorado, he blew a kiss at Chris Chelios while attempting to encourage him to take a penalty. Chelios didn't get him there, but Fleury and the Avs came out on top in that series. He had almost as much skill with his lips as he did with his stick. Chris Chelios. Chris Chelios was one of the best defensemen in hockey history. He had everything. He could skate, he could hit, he could pass, he could shoot, and he could also speak a good game. Chelly, as he's known, never shied away from telling his opponents what was on his mind. Christopher Pronger. Chris Pronger is well known in the NHL for being a player who enjoys teasing the press, but he never shies away from a verbal brawl. Of course, why anyone would want to confront this person in any kind of combat is beyond me. He's enormous. If you do call out Chris Pronger, he'll respond in kind. When Adam Burish swore he'd hit Chris Pronger in the face the next time he saw him, I'm sure he felt he was being a big guy, but Pronger is an old hand at this. Pronger has the ability to put individuals in their place both physically and verbally. Patrick Roy. Patrick Roy is the best goalie in history, and he has 3 Conn Smythe trophies to prove it, and talking trash was something he was always very adept at. Patrick could always give you a little extra punch with his comments, whether it was with the Statue of Liberty saves he loved to make, the additional wink he would give you immediately after robbing you blind, or this fun little interaction he had with Jeremy Roenick. Another one of my favorite remarks from him came in the 1996 Stanley Cup final against the Florida Panthers when he was asked about the rats tossed on the ice. He basically said he let a couple in so that the fans who brought rats wouldn't have to take them home, which would be horrible for them. Claude Lemieux. Claude Lemieux is widely regarded as one of the most despised players in the NHL. He is well known for his hit on Chris Draper, which sparked one of the biggest rivalries in NHL history between the Colorado Avalanche and the Detroit Red Wings. Aside from being a physical threat on the ice, Lemieux understood how to run his mouth and did so frequently. It was a little bit of everything with Lemieux. He'd hit you, slice you, punch you, and then score on you. You best believe he told you about it every step of the way. Mike Richards. The most amusing aspect of Mike Richards' trash talk is that he's quick to call out other players for doing the same thing he does. Unlike Subban, he has earned his respect by dropping the gloves against anyone, and yes, he is a tremendously good player. His complaints about the Pittsburgh Penguins falling down easy and other such remarks come across as whiny. Richards might have benefited from speaking to the media less frequently. And we definitely will benefit from you subscribing to our channel. We get to grow and you get to watch more amazing content. It's a win-win. Matt Cook. Matt Cook, one of the league's most despised players, has certainly established a name for himself. His statements regarding PK Subban, accusing him of being a dirty player, are the most sarcastic and amusing. Matt Cook is apparently a comic as well, because no one is dirtier than him. To say he's an agitator would be an understatement. He's a plain, annoying and dangerous player. Bobby Clark. Bobby Clark was a member of the Broad Street Bullies Flyers team, which were despised throughout the league for their dirty behavior. That was a different period when such behavior was expected and rarely policed. As disliked as that Flyers squad was, you knew it was only because they were so good at what they did. Bobby Clarke was one of the greatest. Clarke had no issue identifying a person, slashing him severely across his ankles, and then telling him he'd do it again if he came anywhere near him. Those Flyers squads were amazing in terms of physical efficiency. They simply annihilated opponents. Bobby Clarke was one of the best. Dion Phaneuf. Dion Phaneuf doesn't give the best interviews. He frequently just repeats himself and offers the same cliched responses. On the bench, though, he won't stop chatting. Phaneuf certainly exudes a brazen attitude, and he makes it known to everyone. He can constantly be seen chirping from the sidelines, and he frequently follows it up with a big blow and a few fights. Steve Ott. Ott's game's strongest characteristic is trash talking, which he has elevated to an art form. Steve Ott is the only player I've ever seen who can push Jerome Iginla over the edge. Iginla is a fighter who will usually fight to rile up his own squad and get the juices flowing on his bench. The only time this does not apply is when the Flames face the Dallas Stars, since Ott is constantly all over him. If you can make Iginla, one of the coolest players in the game, go utterly insane, you know you're quite amazing at what you do. Ott is one of the NHL's greatest agitators, and his propensity to trash talk helps him. Sean Avery. Sean Avery is easily one of the most despised individuals in the NHL today, and for good reason. Not to mention his ability to chatter your ear off from one end of the rink to the other in the hopes that you'll take a swing at him and give his team a power play. He is a highly physical player who can knock someone down and then practically follow them from end to end, reminding them of what he just did until they can no longer take it. Avery does on occasion allow himself to go to areas he should not, but that's part of his game. He'll basically say anything to get someone off their game, and he is one of the greatest at it. Matthew Barnaby. If there were a PhD program for trash talking, Matthew Barnaby would be the person you'd have to defend your doctoral thesis against. When it comes to shouting trash and irritating members of the opposing team, this guy is the absolute best of the best. One of Matthew Barnaby's most recognizable photos is of him in a battle, twisted against the boards. His opponent is attempting to break free and throw some punches, while Barnaby stands against the boards for around 5 seconds, saying "woo" before commencing to wreak havoc on his opponent. Barnaby always had something to say and a fascinating facial expression to go with it. NHL players don't become great for trash talking, they become great because of skill. Watch the video on the screen to know the best hockey workouts that NHL players do to get massive.